because I come from an unusual background that not very many people have. I like to call it dying on the altar of coolness. I've done a bunch of cool stuff, but sometimes the cool stuff doesn't pay well, but you get really good stories. But anyway, my name's Jonathan Nowacki, and a quick bio. I love outdoorsy stuff, and I like physical exercise. I like movement, and if you combine them both, I'm in heaven. And one of my sports is right here. Here I am balancing a person with one arm, and this is called partner acrobatics, like Cirque du Soleil style partner acrobatics. And here I'm in the yellow shorts, and half this room is Cirque du Soleil, the other half is collegiate cheerleaders. And so I'm really big in the movement sports. I've been super lucky, or I've made the right choices, however you want to look at it, because I've really had to work to get some of these coaches, to have a bunch of amazing coaches. On the left is one of my really good friends, Joseph Logno. He's got the world record for deadlift in the all natural class, where they test you for steroids. The pro class is where they don't care what you're on, but he has never taken any steroids, and I believe him because he's also a vegan, and he's got the world record in deadlift. And I've got Cirque du Soleil, USA powerlifting, and then one of my gymnastics coaches right here, where he's doing a split, holding a person up with one arm. It takes a lot of discipline to do this stuff, and a lot of rigor and a lot of mental control. And they taught me a lot about work ethic and working intelligently. Here is, and I even got the luck to travel to the Netherlands to train with this guy. And you can tell he's doing a one-arm handstand on somebody else's head, on a woman's head, which, you know, if you do it wrong, it's hard enough to do that on the floor, but if you do it wrong, you can actually break the woman's neck. So it takes an enormous amount of skill and discipline to do this kind of trick. And you can look from this picture, he's not exactly young. So he's also a big inspiration for me. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can still have fun. You can still, you know, do amazing things, and it's never too late to do it. I mean, he's probably older than almost most of the people in this room, the vast majority of the people in this room. And he's still doing amazing things. And he's actually one of the best physical coaches in Europe. So a few key lessons I learned from them is, you know, progressions, the importance of progressions, starting from little things and building up, and how important it is to master the fundamentals. And then you move up to the next level, then you master that, and you move up to the next level, you master that. Don't always go for the big tricks. And the same thing happens in math. Really get the fundamentals down. A lot about brain science. You know, some people learn kinesthetically, some people look visually, some people, you know, learn orally. And so everyone learns and needs to be taught, or needs to be communicated to in a different fashion. And this is true whether it's in sports, or whether, you know, you're trying to teach yourself certain complex, or if you're in the boardroom and you're trying to talk to a business partner. Everyone has a different communication style, and you have to learn that from, you have to be able to identify it. And I also really taught me the value of, like, iron sharpens iron, that constructive feedback is a gift. And, you know, we actually had this shirt to say, do it again, but suck less. And it sounds terrible, but they weren't trying to be mean, but it's just the way of, you know, trying to make you better today than you were yesterday. So there's a little foreshadowing. Even though these are lessons in sports, I'll come back to all these later when I talked about my favorite coaches in a more professional realm. So my professional history, real quick. This is where I talk about, you know, how try and gain a little credibility in this room. So I've had a wide variety of high impact experiences. I trained the Department of Homeland Security how to scan for biological weapons. I installed these clusters of computers and I don't know how many different institutions around the world, and all they did was crunch biological data. There's a magazine, maybe you heard of it, the Smithsonian magazine, and they talk about the big refrigerator-sized machine that saved chocolate. Apparently, there's a pandemic among chocolate, and one of the machines that we worked on helped stop that pandemic from killing off the chocolate. It wouldn't have completely eradicated chocolate, but you would have expected to see $50 Snickers bars. So, and also my work was in the movie Contagion. So when they're in the lab and they're scanning the unknown virus, and you're looking in the computer screens and you're looking at, the viruses on the computer screens, that's my work. And when they're using laboratory equipment to scan for the viruses, that's the machine that I worked on that is now in the Smithsonian Institute. So, and also, I mean, I've been doing big data since like big data was even a word. And it's mostly thanks to this guy, which literally uses the Hubble Space Telescope and lightning bug juice to scan the DNA molecules and RNA molecules and produces enormous amounts of data. And then I would crunch that data and try and make sense of that data, and then talk to the biologists and as well as marketing and sales team about what it is we're actually looking at. I would also do like neural networks, using keras and other things to try and predict the protein function. You might have heard something like SETI at home. Well, there's a thing called folding at home, which is just folds proteins and try and predicts the protein function. So, and it's an enormous enterprise. If you add up the computational power of folding at home, it's the equivalent of the third largest supercomputer in the world. So there's a lot of people donating their laptops to this effort. And then that's just donation time. And I have absolutely no clue what it is in the private sector, but I'm sure it's a lot more. I cut my teeth on Big Red Supercomputer down at IU. And this magazine cover here, Chemical Biology and Drug Design, I designed that cover. I'd say right about now is around the time I get to decide if that molecule has made it through the FDA or not. One of the things again, dying on the altar of coolness, you can do really amazing things, but the problem is some of these things you have to wait 15 years to find out if you actually did a good job. And so if you like instant gratification, this is not the industry for you. I've also worked for NASA, and NASA's very interested. Why wouldn't somebody like me work for NASA? Well, NASA's very interested in extremophores, and this is sulfuric acid vents, and basically these sulfuric acid vents will dissolve cars in 24 hours, but bacteria thrive in there. So NASA really loves bacteria that can thrive in boiling. They got a pandemic research trying to stop some of the world's deadliest diseases. And just running through this. And, as high impact things, I've represented a $250 billion company at the largest genetics conference in the world. So there's a quick rundown of like some of the things I've done. A lot of my background is in Python and R, so I fit quite at home here. And I've done a lot of containerization work, Docker, and there's a version of Docker, Singularity, where what Singularity is it's just a more bulletproof version of Docker to make sure that reproducibility is paramount, because Docker, even though it's a container, it tends to change over time. So like if you build a container today, 6 months ago, or 10 months, or 6 years from now, or 10 years from now, the container you rebuild may not be the same. That doesn't work in the FDA world. And so with Singularity, you're guaranteed the same container all the time. And the last presentation, and we talked this IndiePy talked about Apache Airflow. Oh, I was kind of laughing during that entire talk because we use something very, very similar and call it SnakeMake. And basically all it does, I don't need to run through this because it's the same thing we talked about last time in here, but you have a series of programs you're running in a certain order. We call these directed acyclic graphs. And you can parallelize these things and crunch through a whole bunch of data. And then you can also create these really fun little roadmaps that are quite complex. This is a very typical roadmap in the biology world of a directed acyclic graph, but it looks exactly like Apache Airflow. And so I've You know, for me, it's like Windows, Macintosh, the same thing, but just, you know, industry preferences. As far as academics, I've got a bachelor's in biology, master's in computational biology or bioinformatics, and I have an MBA. And I'm an adjunct professor of graduate level advanced models in artificial intelligence at Butler University. I teach generalized linear models, logistic regression, time series analysis, optimization models, and neural networks like Keras. So, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about, so there's my rundown. I'm done introducing myself, but one of the things I wanted to talk about, since I want to approach the broadest, you know, range of audience in this room, is while I was writing my class, I kept on searching for the best coaches, you know, because I wanted to have a good experience for my students, and for me, finding the right person and the right way to communicate complex topics for you to a person is at least very important to me, because I really, really value the coaches I've had in my life. And so one of the things I did, every topic I came across that I was going to teach in my class, I literally took the same class, but like from 10 or 20 different people, or maybe even 30 different people. And so I read the same thing taught 30 different ways, and I saw how they did it. And it turns out there's quite a bit of variance. And so in order to understand why somebody is my favorite coach, it's really important, I think, to take a look of what coaching I don't like. And it's kind of like the ice cream on a hot sidewalk kind of point of view. And so I'm going to show you something that I don't like when it comes to advanced models and statistics. So how many people here can tell me what this means? Just raise your hand if you know what this means. You think so? All right. Anyone else? All right, we got one hand in the room of people. I want to hear what you think it is.
So you're asking what's in the blacked out section, not just this is a function definition and set notation. It's a function definition and set notation, but I don't know which function.
I don't know which function. So this is what? It is the identity function. Awesome. So basically, what this is a whole bunch of gobbledygook to say we didn't do a damn thing. Like we literally multiplied by 1, and we didn't change anything. We didn't modify anything. We didn't do anything. Basically, what you gave me, I gave you the exact same thing back. And this is how Wikipedia, if you go to identity function in Wikipedia, this is how it explains it. Now, I could not think of a simpler mathematical function than to do nothing. And here we have a room full of really smart people, and it was still a struggle to figure out what the heck this meant. And as I'm reading through all the books, like this type of talking is over and over and over again for models that are actually quite complex. And I'm sitting here, I know how to do this stuff, and I'm trying to read these books, and I'm struggling to get through a lot of these books. So, so here again, like my desire to find good coaches that can speak my language, I believe it paid off, and I wanted to share some of these coaches to you that don't talk like this. So the first guy is Quant Psych, Dustin 5 PhD. And this is his actual profile picture, all right? He's a goofball. And if you watch his videos, all I can hear in my head is Looney Tunes music, because he literally goes to helium voice to like, he's always mimicking things. In fact, the first couple times I listened to him, I literally turned him off because he was so over the top, I couldn't pay attention to him. But he is far and away the best person to learn what I call generalized linear models, logistic regression, or classification problems with statistics. And he's very passionate about it. And one of the reasons why he's really passionate about it is because he says only 30% of the research in his field is reproducible. And he believes it's the methodology, and for a wide variety of reasons. One, people are overusing or misusing p-values. And so, we're all taught in high school what a p-value is, but there's times where like you shouldn't really use p-values. And he actually and he also noticed that there's a lot of people that are using normal distribution models to apply to things that aren't normally distributed. And the example he gives is suicide. Not everyone commits suicide, so why would you fit a normally distributed model against suicide and try and model suicide? And so you don't use normal distributions to model rare events. So everyone's following me with that. Okay, yeah. So like you don't take a models made for common events and apply it to rare events. And so he founded this thing called simplistics, and it's actually really beautiful because if you're a visual learner and all you want to do is say follow along with how just look at things and you don't really have to understand the math, everything's visual, then it's super easy to learn high level, PhD level modeling and traditional statistics by watching his work. And it feels like I'm in a high school class. It's not that hard. And he does a fantastic job at it. And he just, and so instead of doing formulas, for instance, and if some of you guys have actually done neural networks, he just talks about bending the line. And so you just bend the line a little bit differently. And it's funny because when you take statistics, no one talks about bending the line. But when you go do neural networks, everyone just bends the line because they don't care. Like they're just like, I'm just gonna do the squiggly shape, or I'm gonna do this, they call it differently, tan H or sigmoid or whatever. But he just talks about bending the line, and you want to use the right shape to model certain distributions. And so I love the way this guy teaches advanced models. I really think like any high schooler could do it. And he makes it fun. And one of the things, and so I don't know, this is one of my favorite comics because it talks about, hey, the guy goes, hey, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and you take off the mask and you find out it's just statistics underneath. And you're like, oh, I don't want to learn statistics. Put the mask back, machine learning mask back on the statistics. It's important to learn. I got this from Elon Musk, by the way. So, but not directly, but I stole it from his feet. It's important to understand the statistics, especially if you're going to do machine learning, because statistics is the fundamentals of machine learning and neural networks. And when you understand, the granular components of things, then the big picture just becomes easy. It becomes very easy. But if you don't understand what's going on at a low level, then you can kind of get things to work, but every now and then the big beast just bites you because it does something you don't expect. But anyway, I really try my hardest to stay away from this kind of stuff. Again, this is from Wikipedia, and a lot of statistic books use this type of language, but I will never use this type of language. Another person, Dr. Kat, Katie McConkey. I literally bought every single optimization modeling book, PMO, Ample, and stuff like that. And Dr. Kat, Rochester Institute of Technology, she teaches these transformation models, basically like when Google Maps wants to find the quickest, direction from point A to point B, you use an optimization model. When you're trying to figure out shipping lanes and shipping boats, and you want to get things, the cheapest, or you're trying to lower costs at FedEx or Amazon with the shipping containers, you use optimization models. It's big money. It was the first certification when I just posted it on LinkedIn, and I got like 15,000 retweets. I was like, holy cow, there's a lot of people that are really into this, and there's a lot of people doing it. It's not as sexy as say machine learning, but logistics is huge. And the neat thing about this is if you've ever done neural networks, there's an optimization function in neural networks. And it's slightly different, but if you understand how these things work, then you can understand how neural networks are trained just a little bit better. So, and this is all free on YouTube, and it's super easy to follow. And I mean, she literally holds your hand every step of the way. She doesn't use any fancy terms like identity function. And I got a little ahead of myself. These are transportation models, Google Maps. And then neural networks is gradient descent. For people that understand neural networks, use optimizers to find the part at the bottom. And then it has a very similar feel to it. Then it's different, slightly different, but to this process versus, you know, what FedEx does. Another one, 3 blue, 1 brown. I'm sure a lot of the people on this group has seen it. This guy, Grant Sanderson, he really believes in the visual perspective of higher mathematics, discovery through what's called inquiry-based learning or inventing math. And so it's his style of teaching. And he does a fantastic job, again, lots of visualizations. And in this case, it's, you know, he talks about the Fourier series and combining sine waves to make weird shapes. But he, if you ever want to see how neural networks work, I mean, here's number 9, then he shows the different neurons being lit up, and he shows you how, like, you pass numbers through a neural network, and the different neurons light up. And then you can actually go, he has the link to the code, you can download the code, and then you can go do the same stuff yourself. So it's an awesome learning tool. And then there's a guy named Dustin Stanlin. He does a show Smarter Every Day. It's more for the layman, big crowd. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for this guy because he really opened up my eyes to a few things. His 11.4 million subscribers on YouTube just talks about science. And this guy, this part right here, so this is a Fourier series, and basically this is a oscillograph of a sine wave. And if you tile the sine waves, I don't know if we how many engineering people we have here. If you tile the sine wave on top of each other, say like 20, 30, 60 times, you can turn the sine wave, make it look into the square wave down here. And so that's a really common thing to do. But if you do it enough, you can make any shape you want. And he actually challenged the guy to turn a sine wave into the shape right here, which is the logo of his show. And the guy did it. And it's wild. It is absolute wild how you can just turn a simple sine wave, and all you're doing is, you know, changing the start and tiling the things on top of each other. And then you can draw pretty much any shape you want. And that blew my mind. And so, and the thing that really blew my mind right here is this little talk, and I like to play it for you. I don't know if it'll come over across the speaker.
It should. I think the audio should come out.
I'm not hearing it.
Oh, well.
I should have set that up earlier. My bad.
Right there. Go ahead, try it now.
All right. View slideshow.
Things start to hone in and it starts to look really good. At about 40 circles in this whole function, things start to look really good, and your brain would totally think that you're looking at a drawn image instead of a mathematically drawn function. If you look closer at just one of these arms, you would think that it's chaos, but it's not. It's complete order backed up by a mathematical function. In fact, this is why I love math. It's the language that describes the entire physical world. We can approximate anything as long as you have enough terms. This is the beauty of the Fourier series. You take simple things you understand, like oscillators, sine waves, circles, and you can add them together to do something much more complex. And if you think about it, that's all of science and technology. You take these simple things and you build upon them, and you can make a complex system that can do incredible things. A simple thing can lead to something incredibly powerful.
So that really stuck with me. And so when I'm trying to teach some of these concepts, I really focus on the building blocks. And I try and make them all connected. and then you create something really complex and masterful at the end. And for me, just like when I saw the goosebumps and why he literally says, this is why I love math. And it wasn't until I watched this show right here. I mean, I always kind of tolerated statistics, but it wasn't until I watched the Fourier series that like something lit up inside of me. And I started really getting into the fundamentals of all this stuff. And I started relearning math and statistics and stuff like that, because this guy, before I just did it because I had to do it. But now, like when you run into someone like this and you run into someone else that helps you connect the dots and shows how the individual notes can make things turn into music, it makes math and like a lot of these things were drudgery before a lot more fun. So, oh,
Things start to hone in.
so now, and the 3 blue, 1 brown, just circle back. They also have a much more advanced version. I really recommend watching the Smarter Every Day, but then you can go then and see the 3 blue, 1 brown takes it to a whole nother level. And it's just way more complex than even Smarter Every Day takes it with the stuff. But anyway, circling back to the beginning, there's a guy, he's a Harvard trained, part of the Cambridge group, machine learning AI expert. He has a quote where he talks about neural networks are nothing more than recursive canonical GLMs. And so what is a GLM? Well, it's this graph. And sometimes you bend the line. That's it. And so, I mean, that's literally it. And so, and if you take, and so, and the idea, what he's saying is that a neural network is just a whole bunch of these line graphs. And we talk about it as neurons, but if you take away a few things at the beginning, and I need to be specific here for the people who actually know how neural networks work. You know, there's a randomizer component and a few other things at the beginning, and there's back propagation. But if you take away, you know, those little tuning things, at its heart, this is all a neural network is. Just a whole bunch of these little line graphs. And sometimes we bend the lines. And that's it. And so for me, this is kind of, you know, the Fourier series, but with a twist. It's just a whole bunch of simple things tiled on top of each other to make something magical. And as we all know, you know, ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff is getting kind of magical these days. And so I just got to give an extra plug to Destin. He actually attended to a talk at NASA. And another fun thing about human behavior, the Artemis program is struggling. You know, it kind of wants to do what the Apollo program does, take us to the moon and put a permanent base on the moon. So it's like the Apollo program plus, and it's struggling. And it may not make it. And there was a recent paper saying we should all give it a SpaceX. But he gave a talk at NASA, and it's funny because there's this little pamphlet here. What made Apollo program a success? And he sat in front of the room, leadership of NASA, and he asked them, "Have any of you guys read this?" And it's quite clear that a lot of people in the room hadn't read it, which is a very painful talk. But again, it drives home a point, like when you see somebody that's really successful at something, it's important to go back and say, what did they do that's right? And so, and one of the things I do through this whole process is I look for people who are really successful in, you know, their craft, and I ask them, what did you do that's right? And it turns out a lot of those people like have their material online, is completely free, but you know, nobody really pays attention to it, even though they should. Just like all these big wigs at NASA that didn't read this little document, what made Apollo program a success. So for me, it's really important to find out who's good at stuff and figure out what they did right. And speaking of what he did right, Destin, during that talk, he talks about how he gives talks. He starts with lots of big personality, and then he winds down the personality and then winds up the topic complexity. And you notice at the beginning of my talk, I started with lots of personality, my hobbies, and then I started talking about the science and my favorite teachers. That was the content. Well, we're right here. So now I got to wind up the personality a little bit and end up with a bang. So bike party. So for people that don't know, it's it's just a big event where we have a whole bunch of people and you just go bike from like, 6 o'clock to like 3 a.m. And it's awesome. It's like 5,000 people riding bikes and it's just no purpose, whatever. It's just, fun outdoor exercise. And that's what I like, fun outdoor exercise with lots of people. But anyway, I ran into a guy that was not your typical academic. Carried one of these, which is, a Milwaukee box cutter. Carried one of these, which is a Milwaukee thermos, which was very nice, and I happened to buy one, by the way. I recommend them. The bottle of Jack on his bicycle, and then he delivered his bicycle, with a roof rack, ladder, truck, and stuff like that. So not your typical academic. And then he talks about, and he finds out like what I actually do for a living. And of course, I get the whiskey talk about Skynet and about how, I'm going to destroy the world and all this kind of stuff. So I've got a drunk guy with a knife telling me I'm going to destroy the world. Fun times. Anyway, and there's a purpose to this because like when you're in the business meeting, you have to be able to convey complex topics to people. So here I am, I need to convey a complex topic to an armed drunk guy. And so I do my best. And he understood these little line graphs. And so I talked about it because most people do. So I talked his language. I used his words. I used things he understood. And then we talked about how each one of these little line graphs picks a certain part of a picture or picks a certain part of a sentence and then forms correlations, statistics, stuff like that. And then we just tile them on top of each other. And then you can actually figure out, and I use this exact example, if you feed in a cat or enough cats in the end, it figures out what a cat looks like and it can output cat. And then it was really cool because then he was like, well, can you take it the other way? And I'm like, yes, that's what's called generative AI. You type in cat, C-A-T, and it gives me a cat. So like I was able to speak the language to him simple enough and nice enough that he by himself figured out how to do generative AI. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. But yeah, in a recap, share your favorite teachers. If you find somebody that just made something topic super easy for you to understand or really like instilled you or set fire in you, share. I mean, if you want to share them with the whole group, great. If you want to share them with me, I don't care if all 70 of you people email me and say, here's my favorite teachers, check them out. I may not get them all in the next week, but I'll definitely go through the list because I really do believe in having good coaches and having good teachers. The right one can be absolutely amazing. And when they teach you how to teach, it pays off because when you're in front of key stakeholders or a drunk construction worker with a knife, like you can, calm them down and you can talk their language. And yeah, network with me. I'm a people person. I'm a data person. I'm also a people person. And I'm always looking for, new opportunities, figuring out what's hot and what's not. And I would love to talk to each and every single one of you. And I think that's about all I got for the day. So thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan.
So, yep.
So I have the first question, which is how did you allay his fears of Skynet at this point? Because you got him to understand where this is coming from, but how
Yeah.
did you get him not to still be afraid of that's where it's going to?
I mean, once he understood, it's just a whole bunch of graphs. I think the fear just went away. And a lot of fear just stems from not understanding and thinking it's magic. But once it was no longer magical, the emotions just kind of went away for him.
Awesome.
So
Very cool. Who else has questions for Jonathan? Certainly, we've got some questions online. We've got any questions out there, Laura? Feel free to raise your hand. If you guys
Yeah,
wanna-
there was one, what was the name of the first guy? I'm not exactly sure what JR is referring to in terms of the first guy.
Lesson 5, quant psych.
Quant Psych. I saw that someone posted the links to them into the,
The only one I didn't find was, Dr. Cat. I posted the other 3
in the chat
Yeah.
on Slack.
She's on YouTube. Dr. Cat, do Dr. Cat PMO on YouTube. She's amazing. I literally don't know anyone that teaches optimizers anywhere near as well as she does. So
Awesome.
We have a raised hand. Paul, feel free to speak up.
Yeah, Paul, feel free to go for it.
Hi, hello, thanks for having me. I am currently in Orlando. I'm at FETC, which is the Future of Education Technology Conference. And we have a huge, basically everybody from Adobe to Microsoft to anybody you can think of is implementing AI into their platform and services. And I guess my question to you is, what's basically the biggest drawback? Because we do cybersecurity, school security, COPPA and FERPA compliance. So what would be like the biggest drawback on your end from an educational perspective on using AI in a classroom?
I mean, honestly, the more AI in the classroom, the better. My job is not to make them memorize anything. My job is to make them succeed in the real world. And if you're going to use AI in the real world, use it in my class. That just means I'm going to make the problems harder. That's it. That's all that means. I'm going to do something that you can't do just with AI.
Awesome. I like that. Maxime, you have to go over the microphone.
Yeah. By the way, I will also say the follow up on that. I discussed that with my advisor at Butler University, and they had their own brain science expert. I forget her actual position, and her position was, if it's in the real world, let them use the tools in the real world. So
yeah, awesome. Maxime.
This is like a good distance.
Yep, you're good.
So speaking as a high school student that is currently in high school, a lot of teachers, it's like very split. Some of them will say like absolutely no AI. Some of them will be like, hey, this is a thing, so we should like use it for drafts and such, but don't like plagiarize. So it's really starting to pick up in the like lower education.
yeah, I mean, plagiarism's hard, and I don't have a good. I'm sure there's people that have spent a lot more time thinking about that than I have. I know if I use ChatGPT, I'm supposed to cite ChatGPT. But for me, it's if you want to be competitive, I mean, for me, my goal is not to. My goal is to make you competitive in the market. That's it. And I'm going to let you use all the tools that are available in the market. And so, yeah, as far as plagiarism and creative writing, I'm not an English teacher, so I don't have much advice on that kind
You're
of
good in his class.
stuff. Yeah, my class, you're good. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maxime.
yeah.
Come on up here to the microphone here.
Do send the app question. The curve fitting you showed, or the bending of lines. I've heard of something called like sketching algorithms, where you're basically trying to see the smallest number of n you can use to draw the curve of the logo, right?
Yeah.
Do you know much about that?
I do not.
I don't either, but do you also like see value in like the more people you can bring into a conversation about, sketching algorithms or generative AI, maybe you'll hear new ideas you wouldn't otherwise, maybe?
If
In other words, if you can expand the audience of people participating in the conversation,
Yeah.
like maybe it'll expand the number of creative ideas brought forth on
absolutely.
problems.
And like and that goes back to the Dustin Fife, or not Dustin, Dustin Fife issue. where it's more than like just, you know, academic problems. I really believe billions of dollars and a tremendous amount of suffering occurs because people in the psychological and the medical world uh, don't always apply the correct statistics. And you just go to Google and type in reproducibility crisis or in science or in nature and stuff like that. I mean, it's multifactorial. There are reasons for it, but you know, Dustin has a whole bunch of videos talking about how you know, if we don't the easier, the broader our audience anything is, the higher quality that product becomes. And if you're talking in languages that alienates lots of people, then the quality of that product goes down. And you know, that's okay if it's a Nintendo game or whatever. Sorry, Nintendo fans, but like for me, that's not okay if it's science or medicine or you know, the pandemic models, which we all know are terribly wrong, horribly wrong. And so, yeah, the more I don't know, I don't know how to explain the culture of using complex language, but I don't think it needs to be that way. I really don't. And we're only hurting ourselves by using language that very few people understand.
Yeah, hold on. Wait 1 second. I gotta unmute that mic. All right, now go for it.
Yeah, one of the problems that I've kind of noticed in industry is a lot of the out of the box tools almost don't trust the end users to like understand what's going on. So I've noticed that, you know, things that companies are offering in terms of AI and different models don't really show with transparency what they're doing or how accurate they are.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know if you have any like resources or thoughts on, you know, how some of this stuff can be communicated in a way that is a little bit more transparent in terms of how these models are performing so that people can make informed decisions without using them.
I don't. So I'm not an AI specialist. I've used it. I teach it. I've used it to, you know, predict proteins and stuff like that. My hope one day is that we'll have like a large language model that can peer inside the neural network and actually then we can ask ChatGPT what's going on in here, you know, and then it'll untangle that and tell us. The and there's actually there's let me see if I can find it. I had a really cool picture. So view, display, slideshow. There's this guy right here. So I call this the neural network lobotomy, where you basically just go in and you clip certain neural networks and then you train it, and then you clip certain other neural networks and you train it. And the neural network goes from this fuzzy thing, and then it starts pointing out like emphasizing patterns, and then and it gives you a much clearer picture of what the neural network's actually doing. So a lot of people don't really know what neural networks are doing, but I believe there are a whole bunch of ways to like peer inside and then reverse engineer it. And so I believe it's possible. What I don't know is how much of what you're seeing is they literally don't know what's inside the black box. Because I can tell you, like even in the scientific research world, I've sat in rooms where somebody's working on $1 million instrument and nobody knew how it worked on the inside because the people had left, you know. Yeah, the engineers had left and they took their notes with them. So startup company culture, it's a wild world. So
It's kind of follow on to that question. It's like, it feels like we've been told that it's a black box and it's impossible to observe what's happening, but it seems like that's just maybe it's impractical to completely observe what's happening when you have a, you know, 7 billion or 140 billion node model.
yeah, I mean, I I'd say it's impractical.
Yeah.
Or people don't want to do it, or it's not funded, and so they're just giving an excuse, or they're trying to protect their IP. I mean, 3 blue, 1 brown gives you the code where you can make a neural network and you can see the neurons light up and you can reverse engineer the neural network yourself. So 3 blue, 1 brown literally has a walkthrough how to do it. And then I'm showing you, this is from a paper of how to like really pick apart what it's picking up on. This is from like, you know, something that was published 5 years ago. And it's a really simple process. So I'm sure it's only a matter of time where somebody has, you know, a large language model and they can do that. I can't tell you when it's going to happen. And yeah. I'm sorry, what?
Security, we call that
Inference
inference attack.
attack? Okay.
So the concept of like documenting, making explainable AI.
Yeah.
Is I've seen it as far as model parts, the concept that seems to be advertised as a reasonable, putting base out of those samples, model parts, and some other shows.
Yeah.
So I'd really like to see that it's more popularized and standardized for that, different other numbers, but like, you know, decision trees are really explainable as far as how they function. Well, no, that's our 50, so.
Yeah, currently, yeah. And then you also have the issue where now the New York Times going after ChatGPT because apparently every New York Times article is stored in ChatGPT. So if you give it the right prompt, it can reproduce New York Times articles. And New York Times is not happy. So
But it's New York Times has shaped enough lines in the model that it's probable you can get back the same text.
yeah.
Is really what it is, right?
Yeah, I would assume, yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of sticky situations there. Yeah. And so, I mean, that may be a real issue because people, I mean, once people know how things are worked, then you've got, well, then, you know, lawyers can come after the models. Whereas if nobody knows how it works, lawyers can't come after you.
Just keep it ambiguous on purpose.
Yeah.
You want to come over to the mic, John?
Oh, yeah, we have some questions online too.
Okay, we'll come right to you next, Laura.
I'm kind of interested on your take on what do you think AI is going to do to kind of the entry-level software engineers as they start to come into the industry. I've been watching a lot over the last 5 years, and I have
You have a vested interest in this.
a vested interest in watching AI. I have my own opinions, but I'm interested in yours or anyone else's. What do you think AI is going to do to the journey of becoming a software engineer compared to 5 years ago?
I mean, it's going to be disruptive. Things are going to change, but my favorite answer in all these things is always look at the history books. And so every time there's a revolution, you know, people find different jobs and are more productive. And so I know I've used a lot of AI and I'm just way more productive, or it helps. I can write 10 times the amount of code. But I guess it doesn't prove a point. I don't know. I don't know, but I would assume that it would be a force multiplier. But
I think it's going to create 3 jobs for every job it takes away.
You think so?
I mean, I'm kind of old. I kind of feel like, you know, the internet was going to take away all the technical jobs, right? Like, really? Did it? Then the cloud was going to do that. It's all going to, Y2K, I mean, I'll really show myself, right? Y2K is going to end the engineering. And then the cloud, right? And, you know, now we have AI, gluten-free. And so I just kind of feel like at the end of the day, the raw talent will continue to be needed to understand, to do things, and there'll be new opportunities. I mean, I can tell you when there wasn't such a thing as a cloud architect, right? They would think that had something to do with the weatherman. So I think there's new horizons coming, and but there's always the fear, right? Because it is rapidly changing. I wouldn't want to get into marketing right now. Copywriting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, John, there's multiple people in the room who weren't born in the year 2000.
Yeah.
5 on Sunday.
I guess my only answer, or my only response to that is fear has been proven wrong so many times throughout history. that anytime I hear something that I'm supposed to be afraid of, I try to temper myself and just know it's turned out okay so many times. So yeah, I'm with you currently.
All right, we have some questions online, Laura.
We do. So Paul had a follow-up question. Between GPT, Llama, Palm, and Chinchilla, what do you prefer for AI models?
I am not an LLM expert, unfortunately, so I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately. It's out of my expertise.
All right, more questions, Laura?
JR had a question. In terms of pursuit of AGI, do you think it's feasible? And are we really creating Skynet?
AGI, all right.
AGI.
Artificial general intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
The Skynet problem.
Yeah, okay. I mean, are you afraid of line grass? I mean,
When you put it like that, it definitely seems less scary.
yeah, so I think a few things are going to have to really change, and we're gonna have to move beyond line grass and sigmoid curves in order before something happens. There's me personally, I mean, there's the IBM quantum chip, and I know the military is working on some analog microchips. That might be a game changer when AGI really comes around. But with the standard silicon chips, I don't see how artificial general intelligence is going to actually happen.
Awesome. Any other questions in the room?
So JR asks, is open AI full of bull then?
Is open AI full
Full of bull.
bull? I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not the world's most expert. I'm just a guy that, goes to the CARES documentation and reads it and studies it and goes for it. The guys that are working for Tesla and the guys that are working for OpenAI would probably know a lot more than me. And I know those people have access to hardware that.
Uh-oh, we lost your audio.
Not the world's expert on that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to lose the audio there for a second, but I think we're back.
Yep, you are back.
Okay.
And then one more question online from Austin. How much data would a neural network need to operate correctly?
How much what?
How much data?
Lots. The more the better. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. Some things I was really, really surprised. So, let me go up to so if I can, where's it? Okay, so here. So this is fascinating. It actually blew my mind. So with protein predictions, so one of the main things in the human body, the fuel of the human body is called ATP. When you eat sugar, your body can't actually burn sugar. So it's got to turn the glucose, which is a form of sugar, into ATP, and through a whole big set of processes, and then it's actually the ATP that your body uses as power. And so, and there's a way of looking at proteins, and one of the big questions about proteins is whether or not we got a lot of different varieties of proteins in our body, is whether proteins actually use ATP, would they bind to it and consume energy, or do they not actually consume energy? And I was able to, with I don't know, I mean, these proteins are really complex. Not only have like all different molecules, but you get these helical twists, and you get these zigzag beta sheets, and these things get monstrously complex. I mean, so complex that like if you really wanted to model one of these correctly, the most powerful supercomputer in the world could like dedicate it to it in its entire lifetime, for the next 10 years, just modeling one of these things and accurately. And neural networks are able with just by looking at like 300 of these as like a training data set to be able to predict among like a 30,000 data set with a like 98% accuracy which ones bind to ATP and which don't, which absolutely blows my mind. So like I don't understand how, so there are some things that neural networks can actually do off of a very, very limited amount of data. And predicting ATP binding is one of them. And there are other things that neural networks like require enormous amounts of data set, petabytes of data set. So I can't really tell you like how much data something needs. I guess it's all dependent. You run it and then you find out. It's literally you run it and find out. And I don't have a good way to predict. And I can tell you right now, I know a lot about proteins. I've been looking at it my entire life. And I never would have predicted that neural networks would do as good of a job with proteins as it does. It absolutely blows my mind. It's counterintuitive. Because if you understand how complex those things are, like I mean, we literally ask everyone in the world to donate laptop time to like, figure out how these proteins work. And then on my laptop, in like 5 minutes or less, I can train a network and predict like a 98% accuracy what 30,000 of these actually do. Sorry, I get a little animated about this because it was just so shockingly powerful in that scenario. So I don't think there is a straight answer for you. It's all situational.
Also, many more questions?
Another little question about that.
Yeah.
Oh, can you come up here to the microphone?
So, reading through the executive order on AI, it's pretty apparent that they're scared of biological weapons that could be designed by AI, and that they're sort of ratcheting back all the capabilities of various foreign actors to use computational powers and things of that nature. How close are we to that type of reality?
I mean, yeah, this is a hot topic and one where I need to be very careful what I say. There's a lot going on in this world, and wow, I wasn't expecting this one. Yeah, I think that a lot of that's going to evolve in the next few years, and it's going to depend on how the politics folds out, because we still don't. I don't know if you saw the recent some of the recent things that came out last week about what's going on and what happened in Wuhan and the NIH, but there were some pretty big documents that came out just like a week ago, and the whole watching how the legal system around that's going to, the legal hammer is going to fall down on that's going to be something I'm going to be paying close attention to for the next couple of years. That's a tricky thing. I definitely believe, I'm going to tell you right now, what you're talking about is a real threat. I don't think we need AI to do that. I think there are much easier ways to make very powerful biological weapons, simply randomly sampling things in nature. And if you want to see something really scary, look up oligosynthesis, like and infectious cDNA clones is a typical term. Basically, I can email you, and this happened both in Galveston Labs and in Switzerland, where they received an email of the sequence of the Wuhan virus, and then they 3D printed the RNA of the virus, and a week later they had those viruses popping out of E cells. So I can send you an email, and a week later you can, just from an email, have viable viruses. So that our technology on that front end is, I mean, I hate to use this word, but it's almost godlike. So, and so we, I think that's going to be one of the biggest issues. It's not, I don't really consider that an AI issue. I think we got bigger issues than that on that end. So Galveston Labs, and I forget the Switzerland company, but if anyone wants to Google that, it's on PubMed and National Institutes of Health. It was crazy. Like within a month of pandemic, we were synthesizing these things from emails. So anyway,
do have-
topic, sorry.
Yeah.
We do have one more question online from Dino. You mentioned IBM quantum computing. What's your take on its future, especially when it relates to AI?
I'm not an expert in that. All I know, it's way more powerful, and the rules of the game are changed. It's no longer binary, so I can't tell you where that's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. I really don't have a crystal ball.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't give you yours.
No.
That's weird. Any other questions in the room from anybody? Any more questions online, Laura?
There isn't a, we are just full, we're active online tonight.
You guys are winning.
We are. Can you talk about how the academic institutions and students can benefit most with adoption of AI? Do you anticipate the curriculum and test method changing significantly moving forward?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stuff that was very easy a year or two ago, or stuff was very hard a year or two ago, is now like super easy. And so basically, if I can finish the homework with AI, then I'm going to make the homework harder. And I mean, within my institution, the idea is I should give you about 17 hours of work a week. And, you know, if what took you 17 hours 5 years ago now takes you like an hour or two to do because of AI, then, you know, I'm going to give you like 150 hours of homework. And that converts now down to 17 hours if you use AI. So I'm just gonna, you know, make things harder, or like, you know, here you're gonna learn it, and, you know, and I'm not gonna do rote memorization. I'm gonna do more project work, applications. And so, I mean, for me, like when I train people, and I can't speak for all teachers, but I mean, I'm trying my best not to be like the teachers I actually despise growing up. Like you have to memorize a whole bunch of stuff and then you forget it as soon as the test is over. No, I don't do that. I like, if I actually talk to recruiters and I ask recruiters what skills are valuable. And then when the recruiters tell me what skills are valuable, then I try and integrate those into classes.
Some.
And then
Laura?
we do. We're full of, we're on fire tonight.
I didn't expect this.
Does Jonathan have any favorite Python resources? Books, links, tutorials?
I'm sorry?
Say that again.
Do you have any favorite Python resources? Books, links, tutorials?
Python resources? As far as Python, I really like DataCamp. What I really like about DataCamp is they follow the brain science stuff, where you have like a 4-minute video and then you apply it, and then you have AI right there to tell you how to fix your errors. And so, I mean, if you go to my LinkedIn, you'll see that I've blown through almost every single Python and Keras tutorial on DataCamp. And like even the stuff like I know the topics, I take it anyway because it's good to, you know, review the fundamentals. But like you don't, you can't get stuck at DataCamp. like for instance, if I go through a book, I could hit something and I could be stuck there for like 30 minutes, 4 hours or whatever. But when I'm learning through an interactive process, I mean, might get stuck like 2 or 3 minutes max, and then I'm off the next problem.
Awesome. All right, 1 second, Jeff. We got one question in the room. Go ahead, Jeff.
So you mentioned, like, especially in teaching, the fact that AI tools and so on are making quantitative differences. So, the comparison, 17 hours of work, if that turns into 1 hour, then I'm going to assign 150. And you hinted a little bit at qualitative differences in teaching outcome because of AI. Do you have any other like qualitative differences where it's not just we're going to take the same thing and make it bigger, but like ways in which it's like instead of teaching squares, we're going to teach in circles, or we're going to teach in lines, or we're going to teach in something else, where you change the way you teach to sort of either get around, but also integrate some AI stuff.
I have to think about that. I'm sure, I know it has. I just don't, I haven't thought about that. So, I
Do you have an example where you adjusted your curriculum based on AI and based on?
well, I mean, like, I used to really know how to do like ggplot and all that kind of stuff in R. And now, like, I'm just like, here's the formula, ChatGPT, plot this out for me, like, and I've forgotten how to use ggplot because like it plots it out. And then the next thing I know, like, well, can you increase the title of the font title by 4 points? And it just does it. So I know for me, I've literally forgotten how to use ggplot because ChatGPT does it for me. And so, that's one obvious thing. So, I don't know what I would have to do. I'd have to really think about that and self-reflect. I'm happy to send you an email if something pops up. But
put it in the Slack channel.
Or Slack channel, open it in Slack channel.
Yep.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's a good question. I'll reflect on that, and then if something pops up, I'll put it in Slack. So.
Awesome.
We
Any more
still
on
have
your-
a few more over here. What resources do you recommend for people starting with neural networks?
What?
Resources for starting with neural networks.
So the people, everyone I talked about on this presentation, and I really, I mean, if you want to go straight into neural networks, I strongly recommend Keras. There's some, I mean, there's Andrew Ng, his stuff on Coursera is famous. I like a lot of the data camp tutorials. There's some good stuff on, I mean, there's some good stuff and some bad stuff on Udemy. They rank their classes. But I mean, for me, like if you go to 3 Blue 1 Brown and you just watch the neural networks courses, the videos, like you don't have to code. They've got a series on neural networks. That is a fantastic starting point. And then I would start with that. Just watch the neural networks in 3 Blue 1 Brown and understand everything conceptually. And then from there, I think there's some good stuff on Data Camp and Udemy that'll teach you how to code. And I personally think it's really, really important to learn how the generalized linear models work, because that's literally the building blocks of neural networks. So the quant psych guy, he literally sounds like Looney Tunes. Like if anyone's watched him, he goes from helium voice to deep voice, and he's super animated, and it's a little over the top, but like learning how to do generalized linear models and logistic regression through him, I think is extremely important, because when you're doing classification problems, like if I'm looking at a neural network and I'm going to see if it binds to ATP or not, or these proteins, or if I'm looking at your genetics, I'm going to find out if you go bald or not. That's a classification problem. all that is logistic regression. So like if you understand the quant guy, the guy I cited on this PowerPoint, how he teaches logistic regression, then you'll understand classification problems. And so, and neural networks are just a fancier version of that.
Or Lori, you want to do one more, and then we'll resort to the
Yep.
rest maybe on Slack.
This is the last one.
Okay.
So can you provide what are the areas of mathematics that a beginner needs to know to better understand machine learning?
I mean, algebra is a good start. There's a guy, I mean, basically knowing how, if you watch Quant Psych, all right, I'm going to maybe say something slightly politically incorrect here, or, you know, among scientifically incorrect, but whatever, whatever the wrong word is, you know, when you upset people in the field. But if you understand enough math to make a line graph, which, you know, basically is really basic linear algebra, and you know how to plot graph it and then bend the line, then you're doing well. And a lot of the math is covered in the quant psych videos. I don't think, at least to get started, for me personally, I've never, I don't think calculus is necessary, and that's the controversial thing. A lot of people really push calculus. I see at least one head nod out there. Yeah, like a lot of people say you need calculus. There's a guy out in Oxford, I'll put it in the Slack channel. Apparently he's really good at teaching machine learning math and all that kind of stuff. But I've been job hunting recently, and I've gone through a whole bunch of interviews and tests, and nobody asks about, I mean, they really test you and quiz you and try and figure out what you're made of. It's really kind of, I wasn't expecting that. But no one tests you on the calculus. So I personally don't see a need to understand the calculus part of neural networks until you get super advanced. And yeah, I mean, just know how to make plots, you know, the straight line plots. I see one person agreeing with me. Is that an agreement?
I totally agree with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the support. I was afraid I might get grilled on that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for staying around and answering all of our burning questions.
Yeah.
If you've got more of them, I assume you're in our Slack channels.
I think so.
On the DeMystify organization. So feel free to hit Jonathan up over there, or I think your contact information, we can make sure that gets sent out in the summary with the recording. There will be a recording put up on YouTube of the talk today. So if you missed something or want to catch it, luckily you had Adam like live, you know, messaging all the important links off into the channel, which was awesome. So thanks for that. Right now I'm going to do well, actually, let's give you one more round of applause because that was really fantastic. Thanks so much.